Talking about how to build a loyal audience. So not just followers, um, you know, because followers don't just equal having loyal audience. Today we'll be looking at, how to create content that keeps people around for years and years and years. So let's be honest, when it comes to people starting a content creating world, the first thing they think about is just getting more followers. We all do, honestly. Like, you post something, the first thing you check is, did I get a new follower? But the thing is, you have to realize is that what I've come to realize too as well, the hard way is that sometimes your followers doesn't equal success. So, but here's the truth. Like, you don't just want numbers, you want people who actually care about your content. Let's take, for example, 100 engaged followers is way more valuable than 10,000 who don't care about what you do, what you have to offer, or what you have to say. Because followers can disappear, but when you have a low audience, they stick with you for a very, very long time. So to think about it, like how many times have you followed someone and then a few weeks later you're like, oh, why am I even following this person? Maybe they posted something new that went viral and then you follow them, but then nothing else. You never really engage with their content ever again. This happens all the time. So honestly, you're not the first person to do this. The only person that's done this. We all do it. So because most creators focus only on getting followers, they don't really focus on building like real connection with audience. That's how this tends to happen, where they have so much numbers of people who are following them, but there's no connection, there's nothing at all. You go look at the comment section, there's no engagement, there's nothing at all, nothing is going on. So, in this episode, what we're going to talk about is like, first thing is why a low audience is more important than having just followers. The second thing we'll be talking about is what actually makes people stick around and engage with your content. And the third thing is like the steps to actually turn casual viewers into a true community. So those are the three things that we're going to be looking at today, and that will shed more light as to how we can begin on the right journey. So the first thing is like, all right, why would followers alone not give you success? No. Let's talk about something that most creators don't realize until it's very late. Followers don't guarantee the success. Now, let's break it down. You could have 100,000 followers, but if 1% of them care about your content, that's like 1,000 people. Now, if you have to engage, if you have to want them to engage in whatever it is that you want to do, for example, you want to do marketing, it means that you could actually convert 1% of 100,000 followers into purchasing or actually monetizing them. Now, let's say someone else has like 10,000 followers, but 30% of them engage into the content. That's 3,000 people who are actively watching, commenting, and sharing, in which they can monetize. Remember, the first one was 100,000, and they could only convert 1%, which is 1,000. Whereas this other person has 10,000 followers, but they can convert 30% of them, meaning that 30% of them are way more engaging. So in these two scenarios, although the first person has way more followers, but they have less people who actually engage or care about the content. Whereas the second person who has smaller followers, which is 10,000 followers, has like a higher engagement rate, which of 30% of the people, which is 3,000 people who are actively watching, commenting, and sharing. Now, who do you think is going to be more successful? It's definitely going to be the second creator, because engagement is what matters, not just the number at the top of your profile. A lot of people choose vanity metrics like, followers, likes, views, but at the end of the day, the real measure of success is, are people coming back? Are they engaging with you? Are they sharing your content? Do they trust you? And if the answer is no, then you don't have an audience. You just have a number on your profile. So let's look at the biggest mistakes that most content creators make. Now, here's where a lot of creators get it. They get it wrong. They focus too much on followers and they focus too much on getting new followers, and then they forget to keep them. Like, they put all their energy on attracting new people, build, but they don't really build anything that makes people want to stay. So let's look at an example. So imagine you own the restaurant, right? And you put amazing ads, tons of advertisement for people to come in and dine at your restaurant. And all the customers end up rushing in, but then the food is bad. Your service is very slow. There's no atmosphere. It's just horrible. Now, what do you think is going to happen? Like, people wouldn't come back. That's it. Eventually, the business is going to fail. The restaurant is going to fail because you don't have any repeating customers. Content creation is kind of like the same. If all you focus is getting new followers, but you're not actually focusing on connecting with the ones you already have, and they're just going to leave as fast as they come, like honestly. So you have to think about what would make them stay. Why do some content creators build like real communities while others just have like passive followers? It's just all of this boils down to one thing: connection. Just like if you have a restaurant, when people come in, what they're getting is good atmosphere, good food, beautiful service, great customer service. That's what's going to make them come back again and again and again. As a content creator, you just have to build connection. As long as you can connect with your audience, they would keep coming back again and again and again and again. Now, so why do people say connection over content? Here's something most people don't realize is that people don't just follow content, they follow people. Now think about your favorite creator. Like, why do you watch them? Is it because they make great content? Like, you have to think about that. It's the main reason is because you feel connected to them in some way. It's like their personality, their style, their perspective, and their thinking. You just trust them. That is why two people can literally make the same type of content, but one creator builds a loyal audience while the other is just struggling. Because at the end of the day, people don't just want information, they want connection. And where does this connection come from? It comes from a couple of things, it comes from just being authentic, like showing your real personality. Like, when you're not just copying trends or not just whatever, like you're actually being yourself. Next is like you're actually engaging with your audience, like actually replying the comments, the DMs, making people feel seen, and also being consistent to your message, like having a clear voice, a purpose in what you create. People know where you stand. If they feel connected to you, like they'll just keep coming back. They're going to share your content. They'll support you way more. You won't even have to ask them. They're just going to do it. And that's how you really turn followers into like real engaged audience. Now, for those who take it to the next level, is they do that by creating actual communities. Like, they turn their viewers into like a true community. Now that we kind of understand like why followers alone don't make success, we'll talk about what actually builds that community, that loyal audience. Like, how do we do that? Because here's the thing: people don't just stick around for good content, like we already figured out. They have to stick around for connection. And when you think of your own habits, you probably follow tons of creators, but how many do you actually engage with? Like how many of them do you actually comment on? Like, how many of them do you watch every time they post? There's the reason why certain creators like build communities, while others are even struggling to even get a fraction of the followers to care. And the thing is, it's not a matter of luck. It's just intentional. You have to just be intentional about it. So, why do people feel connected to certain creators? Now, let's look at that. Yeah. Have you ever noticed that some creators feel like friends, like you've never even met them before, but you feel like you know them? That's why you see a lot of them, whenever you meet them on the street, they're like, they're ready to just put their arms around them, start talking to them like they've already known each other for a long time. It's because those kind of creators have already mastered the art of connection. Like, it's not just about what they post, it's about how they make the audience feel. That's what separates a forgettable creator to those who like actually build true audience. What they actually do is like they show real personalities. They they don't just, it's not just content. Let's say two people make a video on personal finance. One creator gives up straight facts, like just straight to the point, right? And then the other one is like making very personal struggles with their money, telling funny stories, and like making the whole learning finance like feel very relatable. Like, who do you think is going to build a stronger audience? It's definitely the one that feels real. People just want to follow information. They like to follow human beings. That's that's just how it is. And also they tend to be very consistent. Like, ever followed someone who was super active for like a month and then disappeared for 6 weeks? Speaking of myself, I do that sometimes. That inconsistency makes it hard to stay connected. Now, this doesn't like mean that you need to post every single day though. Like, it's just the fact that you need to connect with your audience and communicate with your audience so that they know what to expect. If they know your style, like, your message and when to expect content, they definitely feel more connected to you over time, and that's how you build a trust. Now, you now you must be thinking to yourself, like, well, how do you turn those casual viewers into like loyal fans? Well, all right. So just so you understand, like, why connection is important. Um, how you can turn your casual viewers into loyal fan, it comes down to just one thing: engagement. When people engage with you, they feel seen. And when they feel seen, they stick around. You know? And then if you're thinking about how can you actually make this happen, is what you could do. You can actually talk to your audience like they matter. Like, because they actually do matter. But you have to talk to them. You have to care. The easiest way to turn a passive viewer into a fan is by acknowledging them. So like creators who like build like strong communities, they don't just talk to their audience, they talk with them. you know they're replying to their comments. They're even if they say thank you, like replying something to that. They call out specific audience members either by their name, like shout out to this person, things like that. Sometimes even referencing, oh, I got this idea from this person. And actually listen to like what your audience wants and making content that speaks to them directly, like doing those Q&As where you actually get information from your audience and you're using that to guide your creative process or the content in which you make. Some of these groups even create like inside jokes, like they have shared experiences. Like, those creators who have like cash freezes or inside jokes with their audience. It's not just by accident. That's how those communities are actually built. So inside jokes really make people feel like they're part of something special. Like, for example, like, those gaming creators who like say some funny thing when something happens, when they hit, a home run, something like that. They just have a catchphrase, things like that. Like, different, like, even if it's a finance creator who creates like embarrassing like money mistakes that cause it, like, finance fails Fridays, things like that. They always have a thing, and you have to just create your thing, and then that's your thing, which your people, your fans, and your community. You have to make your audience feel like they really belong. Like, they have to feel like they're part of something bigger. Like, that's why the best creators don't just talk about themselves. Like, they create spaces like where people feel seen. So like they run like just Q&A sessions, and like people answer questions, and they have audiences who answer on their behalf. Some members who answer on their behalf. People just get together, things like that. Uh, and people just even make within that group, they even make their own content and they start conversations instead of like waiting for you, maybe the content creators to jump in. They already have their own tribe, they have their own ways of doing things. Those are things that most of all the top creators actually do, which is actually very impressive. you know the next thing I stumbled upon, I was trying to figure out, and I had to study about it, was how do you keep your audience engaged for very long term? So meaning that you don't just get followers who come and maybe consume your content for like a week and then they go, or rather they stay for you each months, years, things like that. So we kind of understand how to build a connection, like how to turn this casual viewers into like real fans. But the real challenge is like, how do we make them stay for a very long time, and not just stay for a very long time, also be engaged? Because let's be honest, like gaining attention is easy, but keeping the attention, that's the hard part. But if you do it right, like, you build an audience that stays with you for years, not just weeks. So let's look at it. So we're gonna break it down to a few things. So the first thing they're gonna break down is how do you keep your content fresh and exciting? How do you keep your audience engaged even when you're not posting when you're not posting? How do you make your brand feel like home for your audience? So the first thing is like, okay, all right, how do we keep our content fresh and very exciting? Like, if you've noticed, some content creators like they stay relevant for a long period of time, and then some other people just come to they phase out after and disappear after like a few viral videos, and that's it. The difference is that those ones who last longer have evolved. Like and how can we even implement those things to ourselves? Like how can we evolve with our content as a strategy? You know, the, what they can do is keep experimenting without losing your core identity, meaning that the thing that makes you you, you keep it. But that doesn't mean that you should not try new things. So think about like your favorite long-time creators. Like they don't just make the same content over and over and over and over again, right? They try like new things, but they don't just completely change who they are. Like, for example, let's say you started as a finance creator, giving budgeting tips. Overnight, you might add, you know, more personal stories. Like, for example, you could say how I saved $10,000 in a year. That could be a new thing. Even though you're a finance channel, you can add that to as well. And like an interactive Q&A, meaning that you have people ask you questions and you give answers, you could try a new format. If all you did was YouTube videos, now you can start doing a podcast, or you could start doing Instagram short clips. You can start doing behind the scenes, vlogs like that. Eh, The, the key thing is to keep your core message the same, but refresh how you deliver them. you know so yeah, and the second thing is like, how can you stay ahead of the trends, like where you're not always chasing every single trend. Like, trends are good, but honestly, like, if some trends are not meant for you, don't do it. If you jump in on every single trend, your brand just feels very scattered. Instead of like, instead, pick a trend that actually fits your style and your audience interest. Like, like, for example, if I'm a fitness creator, I could adapt trending workouts, like, that suit that particular niche. If it's Zumba or whatever, you can do that. And you don't necessarily need to be doing like those trends that maybe are only for, bodybuilders, things like that. You want to make sure you're using trends very wisely. Like, you don't want to jump on every popular challenge, because some certain things doesn't work with your own group or niche. So yeah, those are things you just need to be thinking about. Now, one of the things that kind of was trying to figure out how some of these creators do things is, how do they keep their audience engaged even when you're not posting? Some of these content creators could go for a period of time where they're not posting, but you can still see the community is still very engaged without you being there. Now, sometimes if you might just want to take a break, or you're in between uploads, how do you make sure your audience don't forget about you? It's the thing. Because in today's world, things move so fast, and if you are not constantly posting, you get pushed aside, people forget you, and you're out of the picture, right? You're out of the game. And the algorithm may not be too friendly if that happens. So, eh, how do you come up with those kind of ways? Now, what people do, I've noticed, seen a lot of creators do, is they create actual spaces where communities can engage without you. You know, a strong community doesn't really rely on you alone. It thrives even when you're not around. That's what the definition means of what a community is. Like, you create a space for your audience to all talk to each other. So that sometimes you have those discords, you have those groups, Instagram groups, Instagram communities, things like that, Facebook groups, even the YouTube community labs as well. Like, these are places where you kind of have those things where you encourage discussion that don't just need like your constant input. And you can featuring like audience and contribution. Like, you could also like highlight like fans comments, content. You can turn some of the things your fans say in those communities into actual content for yourself, and therefore they feel very much seen, and that's how you build those long lasting relationships with people. Also, another thing I've seen a lot of content creators do is that they repose old content to keep it engaging and going. So, like, not every audience members honestly has seen all your content, and even if they have, sometimes a reminder is always great. So you can keep engagement by just reposting old content with like a fresh spin to it, like, a little tweak to it, turning longer, or you can turn your longer form content into like bite-sized clips for different platforms, you know, or you can ask your audience, thoughts on topics that you've discussed in the in past, just to keep things alive so things don't fade away. Like those are certain things, And also, how do you make your brand feel like home for your audience? You know, let's say you finally figured out the best way to keep an audience long term, right? So, to make you, but the thing is, how do you make your brand feel like home? And that's what I've noticed that some of these top tier content creators are able to do this. It's almost like they've made their brand like a lifestyle, Think of it like this, like people don't just follow creators for content, they follow for like comfort, familiarity, and like a sense of belonging. So if you wanted to create something like this, here's how you create that feeling. Like, you know what I mean? First of all, you want to have like a signature style of message. Like, you know what I mean? Once your audience sees your content, they should be able to instantly recognize you. Like a signature, like intro, outro, something that makes them feel familiar, like, or even a consistent way of speaking or presenting your ideas. And then if you want to create like a vibe, you want to have like maybe a specific vibe, if it's like a fun or just deep or motivating or chill kind of vibe that you always create. You want to always replicate that over and over again. Because the truth of the matter is familiarity builds trust. And trust keeps people coming back. That's what you have to know. So the second thing you want to think about also as well is like you have to make people feel like they are part of something special. Your audience isn't just watching you; they're like part of like a journey. So you have to make them feel that way. Like, you know what I mean? You have to like give nicknames. So some people give their community or their fans nicknames. It, that's how they create that community. They share behind the scenes. So it's like you have so much inside the ins and going of the creator, and you see how the way they come up with their own content, and that just brings them closer. As a viewer, as a fan, it brings you closer to the creator. You allow them to be part of your discussions, your decision. You allow them to be part of your decision making, and that always feels good for creators. That's how you make people feel very involved. When they feel like their opinion is heard and their opinion matters. That's how you do it. Another thing is the third thing is what I see most creators do is like they usually show up authentic. Like even when they're growing, like they show up themselves. And one of the biggest mistakes of creators I saw make is that they change too quick once they get too big. Like the audience stick around for realness. Like if they love the authenticity, you don't want to lose it because that just because you want to grow, so you want to keep the same energy that keeps drawing people in. And you want to also just be transparent, like whether you're succeeding or struggling, just be transparent with them. You would find that this builds a deeper connection between you and the audience. You want to stay true to them, so no matter how big your platform gets, still give them what they always wanted from you from the beginning. So now let's just look at some frequently asked questions, some Q&As that we've had. So I did have a couple questions here. So the first question is like, how often should I post content? Like, honestly, it's not really about posting every day. It's about posting consistently. Like, it depends on what you can commit with. Now, some content creators that I've seen, they seem to post either every single day or every week. If that works best for them, or if sometimes I've seen creators do once a month and they actually do really great. Like they take their time, create great content, and they just post once a month. So it depends on whatever it is that works best or feels good. As long as you keep doing it recurrent, consistently, like every single time, whatever you end up picking, even if it's once every 2 months. If that's what you could stick with, you stick with that consistently for a long period of time. That's tend to what seems to work for a lot of content creators. And then some of them, those times whenever they do that, of those long breaks in between, but consistently, what I tend to notice that they tend to have like, they tend to focus on quality over quantity. Like, one amazing video every month or every week is better than like 5 rushed ones, right? So that's definitely what I've seen a lot of creators do, and it seems to work for quite a number of them. So next question is, what if my content isn't getting views? So first off, it's okay, don't panic. Even the biggest creators started off with zero. Like, all of us are going to start off with zero. We all have to start from zero. This is the way, that's just the game. That's it. And so it's fine. So what you want to do is make sure you check your titles, your thumbnails, because a lot of creators heavily focus on those things. You know, they make sure those things are on point. They invest a lot of time into that. Besides investing a lot of time into creating the content, they also invest the time into the titles and the thumbnails. Are they interested? Like, would you click on that video if you saw it? So those are the things you keep on doing. And you don't have to have it perfect at the beginning. You just have to keep on reinventing it and like really working there to make it better and better over time. So look at your time. Like, you know what I mean? Like, look at your watch time. Like, are people dropping off early? If so, tweak the content, check the content out, and see how you can make it much better. You could try also, try different formats. Short, long form, carousels, reels, and then try like a bunch of these and see which one of these ones work. Third question is, how do I deal with negative comments? Negative comments is definitely part of the game. Like if you're putting yourself out there, not everyone will like it. That's just the truth of the matter. It's it's a it's the internet, it's the world. There's a lot of people you're exposing yourself to, and some people might not like it, and some people will really, really like it, right? So that's a double-edged sword that you'd have to deal with whenever you're trying to utilize the internet and you want to play and you want to go into the content game. You just have to ignore the trolls. Like that's what they want. They want a reaction. So, but with that, if people do give you constructive criticism, like I've had a lot of like me just posting my videos online over years, I've definitely received some criticisms as well. Like, people have said some things, and sometimes they're actually genuine feedback. You could improve this. This could be better. This could be better. You missed this. You missed that. And honestly, you could just learn from them and actually, become actually better from those kind of feedbacks. So those are always great. And then sometimes you just have to focus on just those who support you. Like, what I mean? Instead of giving so much energy to the negativity, you can give much more energy to the positive side of things. There's still going to be a lot of people like what you do, and there's some people going to support you. They matter way more than the people who treat you negatively or who leave negative feedbacks. You know what I mean? So focus on them. They are the ones you want to pour your energy in. You have to think about them, focus on them, try to give them what they want, and make them feel really at home in your space, in your community that you've created. Next question is, how do I stay motivated when I feel stuck? Remind yourself why you started. Like, I mean, it was just a way to express yourself, build your brand, or to make money, whatever it is that you wanted to do. So remember why you started it in the first place, and then take short breaks, like if you need to. So, but just try not to quit. So just take breaks if you need to, as long as you need it, and then just come back and keep doing it, keep doing it. It's like kind of like going to the gym. It's like if you go to the gym to work out, like some days you might not feel like it, fine, it's okay, but just don't quit, just don't stop going, just keep on going, and over time, you tend to see you getting better and better and better and better. Also, you can also connect with like other creators. It's like an easier way to like, if you have a support system, for example, when you're down, energies could be really high, and then you could just ride off their energy, and it could like, motivate you to want to create more. So definitely having a community of creators is one way, and also try like batch creating content, like creating multiple videos at the same time. So that way, even if you are tired the following week, you already created enough content last week, so you don't have to create again this week. So those are some ideas in which you can use, because I definitely utilize that. So how long does it take to grow as a creator? Honestly, there's no magic number. Some people literally grow their accounts and grow as a content creator like in like a month. Some people take them like years and years and years and years. I've studied quite a few of these content creators, and some of them take them 7 years, 6 years to finally pick up. Like even the greatest of them, Mr. Beast of them, he's spent years and years and years before he actually took off. So honestly, it's like as long as you're being persistent and like you're learning and you just keep on improving, sometimes you might not even get to be that high up there in terms of like having millions and millions of subscribers and followers, but just you can actually become the biggest superstar in your own community. And like that's successful. Like, you know what I mean? That's a huge success too as well, if you think of it that way too as well. So there's no magic number, and you just have to be consistent, and there's no particular times as long as you don't give up. You know, just focus on those small wins and actually celebrate it. Like if you get 100 views consistently, it's better than anything else. So celebrate that and be happy for that. So, and that's it. I hope this helped. Like if you have any more questions, feel free to go to fahadsuleiman.com if you do have any questions, or reach out to me. I'm more than happy to help or share more stories. Thank you very much for watching.